Now, the figures in your report are fairly stunning. Last year, just 26 people owned the same amount as the 3.8 billion poorest people in the world. Why do you think it is that we've seen this trend towards global inequality intensify?
I think we have a situation where the entire global economy is benefiting those at the top. So since the financial crisis 10 years ago, the number of billionaires has doubled and their wealth has doubled. But you've seen ordinary wages, particularly in Europe, barely move. So you're seeing a whole system that's designed to reward those at the top. And what we're saying as Oxfam is that's broken. It doesn't have to be that way at all. One of the big issues we're highlighting is tax. So the richest people in the world are paying lower rates of tax than they have in decades. You've seen taxes collapse for the richest. So we're saying you could have another system where the richest people on earth paid their fair share of taxes, and then you could see a much more equal outcome, and you wouldn't have this huge inequality crisis which is generating so much popular unrest and public anger around the world.
So your report is highlighting, as you say, tax on this. How much do corporations pay into the system when compared, for example, to regular consumers?
Well, I think if you look at the collapse in taxes on wealth, for instance, for every dollar of tax revenue, only 4 cents of that is coming from taxes on wealth, whereas 39 cents is coming from taxes on ordinary workers, taxes like VAT or income. So you can see there's a real shift in the tax system towards ordinary people and away from the super rich. And that's compounded by the use of tax havens, tax avoidance. We're forever seeing scandals in the newspapers and on television about the super rich avoiding tax. So a key message for us is that let's make the rich pay their fair share of taxes, and then we could have every child in school. We could have a situation where no one fears ill health because they can't afford medicines. A more equal world is possible.
What are the social consequences of this enormous disparity between wealth? I'm thinking particularly of countries like Brazil that you've highlighted in your report, which has seen enormous wealth inequality in the past, but then had a burgeoning middle class for a while.
Yes, I mean, Brazil for 10 or 15 years was bucking the global trend, and you could see inequality falling from a very high level. Sadly, that's turned around, and with the new leadership in Brazil, there's very little interest in continuing to tackle inequality. And you still see a situation in Brazil where the bottom 10% of people are paying a higher effective tax rate than the richest 10%. So it's an upside down situation where poor people are paying more tax, which is not uncommon. I mean, here, I live in Kenya, and here you have dramatic inequality where you see the poorest people unable to pay for basic health care, where the richest people have top-end hospitals, the best health care money can buy. It should not depend on your balance whether your children live or die when they're sick or whether they get to go to school. It should be a right for all.
And socially, though, what does that mean? Does that lead normally to a rise in crime? Does your research show when you have such income and wealth disparity?
There's a very interesting quote in our report from a Danish billionaire who was visiting a Brazilian billionaire, and he talks about the fact that it was amazing for him. This Brazilian billionaire had a wonderful apartment with amazing views, but they had bars on the window and they had 3 levels of security to get in there. And the point being that crime is much higher in unequal societies, and even the richest have to live in a cage behind security guards. And a more equal society is better for everyone. It's better for rich and for poor. And that's what the research shows. And a more equal society is better in terms of your economy, it's better socially, and it's better politically. If you look at the rise of populism, the disappointment with elites, whether it's Brexit, whether it's Bolsonaro in Brazil, or of course Donald Trump, you can see how inequality is poisoning our politics and poisoning our democracy.